Hello, everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining us in our fourth event of EFE's Online Resilience Series. The aim is to provide different perspectives and insights on how to continue empowering youth potential amid such challenging times. Needless to say, COVID has changed all of our lives and has changed the way that we teach and the way that we learn. In fact, around the world, in over 160 countries, were forced to close all educational institutions, and this has impacted over 87% of the world's student population. The entire education sector, from schools, universities, TVET institutions, training organizations, NGOs, including EFE, had to implement overnight digital transformations that were set to be implemented and take years. But education continued, just in a different format. So now, as millions of children and youth worldwide return to class, we believe it has become more important than ever to maximize the potential of online learning. And for that, we have here with us two amazing experts on the field of new technologies in education. So I'm very pleased to introduce our speakers. We have here with us Alexis Lecanuet. Alexis is Regional Managing Director for Middle East and Turkey for Accenture. As you know, a leader in digital transformation. Alexis himself has been with Accenture for over 20 years and has led many transformation projects across Europe and the Met region. EFE and Accenture have actually been partnering for the past 7 years, and together we have impacted over 60,000 youth in 9 countries through online learning, of which 18,000 in the MENA alone. We also have here with us today Nevine Nakhla, MVP trainer in Egypt. Nevine also has over 20 years of experience in brand management and marketing. She has her own trading company, and she has been a trainer with us for over 7 years, providing youth with the skills to succeed in today's and tomorrow's labor market. In Egypt alone, EFE has benefited almost 8,000 youth, and throughout the MENA region, over 110,000. So I invite you, before we start and throughout the next coming days, if you'd like to know more information about us and about our programs, please visit our website, efe.org, and make sure to follow us on social media. But just before I give the floor to our experts, just a few things for the audience. We have a Q&A function, chat function, where you can post your questions at any time, either for Alexis or Nevine specifically, or in general. We'll be hearing from our experts first, and then we'll have a Q&A session discussion. So let's begin. I'll go ahead and take the liberty to ask the first question. Alexis, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. And it would be fantastic if you could tell us a little bit, what are the essential musts to succeed with online learning? And what companies and multinationals like Accenture are doing to improve the online learning experience for youth and its outcomes?
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity of having the opportunity today to share some views around how digital, how technology, and how online learning will have an impact in the current situation. And I also want to take the opportunity to thank you for the important partnership that we are doing with EFE for the last 7 years, as you mentioned. This is important to us. Because there's nothing more important in the consulting world than skills, ability to learn more, ability to grow your employability, ability to basically convert skills into action, into transformation for major clients. And we are doing that while we are doing that internally. It's as important for us to do that externally with our client and externally with our ecosystem. And the partnership with EFE is a cornerstone of this ability to extend our reach and to support the community in the skilling area that we are doing for our people and for our clients. So thanks for that. To your question, I will consider a few angles of it. First, it's absolutely clear that businesses will need more new skills. The new context, the acceleration of the digital technology rollout. So, and people want to learn those skills. So there's no, like ambiguity, or this, it's only more of online learning, more of learning globally, but online learning being, we will discuss about it at some specificity that will basically will be very relevant to the new context. Second, 2020 was a disruptive year in the journey, but also put as clear the paradox of the learning. The paradox of the future learning, I would say it's twofold. On one side, everybody is looking for digital skills. So new skills around the new digital technology. You can mention the artificial intelligence, quantum computing, name it. We have within Accenture an acronym. We have acronym for everything, and we call it the next wave of technology. We call it DARK. So D for distributed ledger, A for artificial intelligence, R for realities, virtual reality, augmented reality, and Q for quantum computing. Those technologies will disrupt the next wave. And of course, the ability to acquire skill in those technologies will be critical to operate your job, depending on where you operate in the. But at the same time, and equally important, we are looking for people with more human skills. So the development of the EQ, the empathy, the creativity, the ability to do problem solving, and in the current context, the ability to be resilient, all around human skills is as important to navigate the new world as the more technical digital skills that I was mentioning. And this is a paradox we need to solve, and we need to make clear. And of course, online learning has an important role to play in that. If I just zoom for the third component within Accenture, you were mentioning a global firm. This is first really important to us. We are recruiting internally, globally, 100,000 people from the market. Most of them, 80% of them, graduate, so young generation. And to get there, we need to be relevant. There's only one way to recruit young generation year after year. You need to stay relevant to the young generation. And to stay relevant to the young generation, you need to bring a compelling way of building their skills, building their employability, building their career going forward. And the way we did it, and we launched recently a full program that we call TQ. So if I set a bit of context, we consider that IQ is coming from your main universities and from your main scholarship. EQ is from a personality perspective, is what will make you successful in a team and in an ecosystem. And TQ, so we launched this TQ program with a personalized learning board for every and each of our 500,000 employees globally, is a way to have a personalized, continuous learning board for you as an employee. Independently, if you are the CEO, so Julie Sweet, the global CEO of Accenture, or a new joiner last month in the organization. And 90% of this content is delivered online. 90% of it. So, and fourth element, let's say, to the online learning experience and what we believe into it is that we do that internally, but I think we are also committed to actively support through the partnership we have with you, through a lot of activities. We are currently helping in the context of the G20 happening in Saudi, some B20 working group. And the only focus for us is workforce of the future and women joining the workforce. Those two elements will be achieved in the kingdom only if we set the right education framework and the right learning and e-learning context. We have a lot of activities. Let's say locally, we are partner of the Hour of Code, so we try to help the youngest part of the next generation to develop coding skills and to understand that through coding you can change the world. We are, let's say, investing in some apps like Smart Labor in the local ecosystem, and we are also investing in giving the access, because we have great content available, but if you do not have a PC, a laptop, or a tablet, this content is not accessible to a significant part of the population. So this is why, as we are investing in putting some content available, like coding, we have recently launched a free open coding training in the region. At the same time, we are releasing as much as we can our laptop and our PC to Dubai Care or to other associations in order to provide for some of the young generation and disadvantaged people the access to the online learning through a laptop or a tablet. So I think we see more of that. There is a very diverse way to address the spread of online learning content and access, and we try to be relevant to our ecosystem to achieve that.
Thank you, Alexis. This is fantastic. I'm picking up on a few things that you mentioned. So you mentioned paradoxes, you mentioned different skills needs, personalization, access. As you correctly mentioned, so now that people in companies are seeking to upskill themselves, to search for new opportunities, unemployment rates are soaring, and demand for education and training is increasing. And so talking about access, to what extent is online learning currently tailored for the different types of populations? You have rural, you have urban, you have various educational levels, you have different languages. I mean, how can we make sure that online learning is really inclusive and tends to the needs of all students?
I think, this is something that is a critical element, because I said sometimes we focus more on the content and less on the access, where the access is as important. So we see very nice initiative and we support some initiative. We last year launched a pilot on shaping apps and learning modules specifically for autism. We also support locally in UAE, I was mentioning Smart Labor, which is basically an app that is trading learning content for the blue collar in exchange of phone credits to call their family. So we believe that working on the access is as important as working on the content. And some of our investment and some of the things we need to do, inclusivity is critical. It's critical for any large firm that want to be relevant in the future. We know, and I think the COVID situation was even making that more clear, that the only way to be resilient, to be innovative, and to be relevant in the future is to have diversity and inclusion in your workforce. And you cannot decide that overnight. This is something that you start to build in your ecosystem. I remember a long time when we start our journey to gender diversity, we were trying to fix it internally. But in our case specifically, if you do not have ladies, women in the engineer schools, you cannot get diversity in a consulting firm. So at that time, we identified that the only way to get to our ambition in diversity and inclusion is to work straight to the ecosystem, at the source, at the root cause. This is true, was true for the last 10 years in gender diversity. I think to your point, this should be true now in the inclusion part of the equation, and especially for the people of determination. And we are addressing in more and more in our, let's say, technology project, a certain part of the budget that is basically allocated to extend the access of what we are doing to people of determination.
Fantastic, thank you so much. I mean, I'd like now to hear a little bit from Nevine. our EFE trainer, you know, on all aspects mentioned by Alexis, but also Nevine. I mean, EFE students, they study all year round, independent of the formal education system. And since the beginning of the pandemic, EFE-Egypt, like many educational institutions and NGOs, didn't have time this time that Alexis mentioned that is needed to change the ecosystem, to implement lessons. We just basically had to do it overnight. So could you tell us a little bit about your experience and what are the few platforms that students are learning or have been learning during COVID in the MENA? What's the feedback from the students? I mean, how do they see it?
Hi, good afternoon to you all. Thank you for being here with you today. I'm honored. Especially that you know that this week we're celebrating the online learning week on the 15th of September. So it's a nice day. First of all, I would like to state something about EFE in general. EFE, the most important thing is bridging the gap between the educational system and the labor market. And that's why we were very fast. We were the first organization in Egypt to act fast after the COVID-19. In EFE-Egypt, we work on 3 different courses or 3 different types of training. The first type is training for fresh graduates and university students. The second one is for the vocational and high institution students. And the third is for the alumni, like an advanced training thing. What pushed EFE-Egypt to start quickly with the online training was that we had 2 working GTP programs, already working while the COVID lockdown started. So our EFE team, management team and CEO and the learning, all the program team, they act fast. And it was in 2 weeks after the lockdown, the decision to continue online training. And of course, this was a very strange and very new way of doing training and learning in Egypt. It took a little bit of meetings, online meetings with the team, with the staff internally, and training on how to use and what to use. And then training to the trainers how to be an interactive as the class. Because this is one of the big challenges of online. If you don't really make it interactive with the students and the trainers, it could be a lecture. You can lose the enthusiasm of training. You were asking me about the, okay, I want to brief you about the platforms. You were asking me about the platforms we were using. We have one of the big strategic partners is Google, and we started with the Google Meet. And as trainers, we use all the Google Meet tools that we have from the whiteboard, the screen sharing, video sharing, even very useful. We use the breakout rooms as if we are in class. We divide the students into groups and we do the breakup rooms, and then they come back with the role play and competition, who's the best to introduce itself. The other part of your question, and you were asking about how we managed to pass this challenge. And I want to tell you, we have 459 career direction graduates during COVID-19 out of EFE-Egypt. And we have 103 GTP program graduates during COVID-19. And we have 2 classes of career direction already working now 3 classes, I mean 3 classes per week working online, and 1 class with 30 plus trainees for the GTP program. Also, the success story of the overcoming the challenge of COVID-19 and the lockdown was we signed already 2 strategic MOUs with 2 strategic partners. One is Life Makers Organization, and the other one is Badr University, and looking forward for other MOUs. The last part of your question, you were asking about the students' experience. The most difficult course, or the most difficult start, was the group of students who had the COVID-19 lockdown in between their course, their training course. It was difficult to convince them that we're going to start online. It took a lot of videos sharing and a lot of training to set the grounds that this will be interactive. And I want to tell you, on the day of graduation, their business presentation on their project was so interactive. They themselves, they couldn't believe that this happened. And it was, they invented role plays, and they were like, screens were shifting between each group, and that's it. We did it all.
Well, it sounds like you're doing a fantastic job. Since you're with youth and you've got so many years of experience, what would you say that makes a great online trainer? And on the other side, what makes a great online learner?
Okay, a trainer anywhere, online or offline, if he's not well prepared, preparing, like we say. But with the online tools, preparing is a little bit different. Sharing a lot of videos to the trainees, sharing a lot of materials, making them read before it, and the interaction. The most important thing and the most important challenge is not losing the interaction of the trainees and the attention span. I mean, if you lose them, they will lose the enthusiasm. Also, the most important thing as a trainer, to set the WAFM, the what's in it for me thing, to tell them that they say what's in it for them, so we are on the same ground of mutual beneficial. They want to learn, they're like a sponge, they want to attract all what you give them and really get used to it. The other good thing, as I say, is the COVID-19 allowed a lot of universities to go online free. A lot of speakers, business people, you can reach them easier. So this helps a trainer. From the other side, about the trainee to be, as you know, at the beginning, they all start shy and they don't know how to pitch or what to say, how to dress up we simulate a working labor market. So they have to know the interaction, how to use the Google Meet, how to use the tools they have, and how to grab the best and the most materials they can bring in and learn from.
Fantastic. Thank you. So you mentioned what's in it. Of course, you know, there might be some people who are looking to increase their knowledge just because they've got curiosity. However, from working with youth in the MENA, and you know, from EFE's experience, most of the youth with whom we work with, their dream is to get a job. So their first dream is to get a job, and then to be able to gain independence, to have a family, etc. And do you think that online learning can better prepare students for the labor market, diminish the skills gap, that Alexis mentioned at the beginning, between what employers need now and in the future, and the skills that young job seekers actually have. And what are the challenges to accomplishing that?
Yes, definitely. I see that online training is much better than offline training. In Egypt, we have in Upper Egypt, we have trainees that are far away from the center of Cairo, 1,000 kilometers. And for them to travel and to leave their families and travel and come all over the way and live in for 5-6 weeks till they get all the training, it's a big challenge. So it's much better with the online training. We have a lot of trainees now from Upper Egypt. And I want to tell you that after COVID-19, our women trainees reached 65%. And this is for us as a miracle. Because in some places in Egypt, girls are not allowed to travel alone. And they are not allowed to spend the night or sleep away from the home. So now, thanks to COVID-19, we are in the home with training them in their homes, in their places without traveling. So I see this is a big potential. And with the new norm, that we're living in, I think we shouldn't lose this good thing we reached. The challenges, of course, as you know, the internet is not perfect everywhere. And we get over this challenge by telling them to keep a tablet beside them, a laptop, a mobile, and to have access from anything. We ask them to open the cameras and the mics, but if the internet is weak, we ask them to close the cameras for a while, things like that. As we were saying, we gained women into training better. We gained students and trainees that we were not out of our outreach, and the interactive of different cultures inside the country itself. This is very useful and very important.
Thank you, Nevine. So it seems pretty clear that there are many advantages with online learning. Of course, some challenges. And Alexis, could you? It'd be great to hear from you. What do you think that we can do to overcome this roadblocks, especially in terms of internet, accessing more vulnerable youth? What else do we need to do? Are there market incentives to do it in that sense?
I think let me build on the benefit before going to the roadblock, because I think what you mentioned are really important points. You know, on the accessibility, on the scalability, on the ability to personalize content, online training is clearly ahead of offline training. So, you know, critical mass, if you want a good teacher, you need to fill the classroom. With the online training, you change totally this paradigm. So you can have accessibility to the best content independently of where you are physically located. You know, typically the way we use that, because consulting and training is more or less the same, you access to pure content. And we, with the COVID situation and with the new situation, in the past, you know, you have a physical meeting and you were trying to pitch or to sell or to show a deliverable in the physical place with the limit. And it was not possible, not convenient, not really attractive and relevant to connect somebody, the best expert from the topic, from the outside of the world or the other side of the world at least. So this was not convenient, this was not done because it was not in the flow. Now, with this technology we are leveraging today, you can connect any expert in any place in the world to be included in the flow of the conversation, not like a side or 5-minute advertisement speech, but in the flow of the conversation. This is helping big time, and this is available through online learning and was not available through the traditional physical driven learning, or at a totally different cost of travel and things like that. So this is something, the accessibility and the ability to, let's say, kill the critical mass of physical training constraint is an important part. Scalability, and this is to your point, I think, also on the inclusion of the ability to provide content to disadvantaged people. You do not have this critical mass to develop content locally or even to distribute content physically. If you sum up all the different disabilities of people of determination, you can create relevant content globally that will address inclusion in the way you can distribute content. So what you cannot do in a physical environment, you can do through this accessibility, scalability, and personalization paradigm. So I think just doing that, you know, of course there is disadvantage, of course there is roadblock, of course there is limitation, and we can discuss about, but let's build on the strengths of the online training. If you just, and you know, by the way, we are in a learning environment here. The best advice that I get in my whole career was work on your strengths. So if we do the same for online training, doubling down on the strengths, accessibility, scalability, and ability to personalize, we can have a huge impact. And then we will work to mitigate some of the risk or some of the limits. The interaction, I think, the engagement of the student was clearly mentioned. But you know, to be in the same environment and in this disruption, we start with less interactive calls, meetings call. And more, we start to use the mural tools, the Miro tool. So all those tools you were mentioning on the Google platform, the one available to create more interactivity, to co-create, because clearly the kind of creativity part of the equation is the one that is a bit more difficult to recreate in an online environment than in a physical environment. So there is some element that you need to work on to mitigate the, but what I'm seeing with my client and with what we are doing locally is that the ability to infuse creativity, interaction, engagement in the way to drive online meeting, which I assume will be translated in online learning, is amazing for a 6 month period, only a 6 month period.
Thank you. I like where you're going. So focusing on strengths, always more and better. So picking up on the benefits that you talked about, yes, inclusion, accessibility, scalability. So I want to go a little bit further beyond students themselves and ask Nevine, what impact could this have on youths and children's families in the MENA?
Thank you very much. This is a very good question, because it's amazing how the impact on the families and the houses. During the first lockdown with the COVID-19, everyone was getting depressed from sitting at home, trapped, not being able to go wherever they want to go, or to educate, or to go to schools and to go to their classes. But with the online training, and especially what EFE started to do quickly, right away, 2 weeks after the lockdown, it made our trainees and our students to be sitting at home with their families and sharing with the families the videos and the learning materials itself. So we got very positive comments and calls from our trainees and students saying that even our siblings and our parents, they were interested so much to know about, let's say, emotional intelligence. They never heard about such, especially parents, I mean. And it made even interaction in the house was very learning. I mean, something very precious to families. Also, the mental health and the students and the trainees, they were not anymore upset or depressed from staying at home and doing nothing, wasting time, no education. As I told you, 459 career direction graduates since the COVID-19. So this is a big number. All these people, we have 3 classes per week. So people are using the time correctly and achieving a lot of learning. So this is very positive, and also positive mental health and psychologically that you're not wasting time by the lockdown, you're learning and building. And this is like making a bank of information and knowledge and simulation of the labor market. So as soon as everything will open, we know that our graduates and our students, they're the first to be employed. So, because they were not sleeping, they were getting ready.
And if I can build on that, because I think, there is a specific opportunity in the current context for Middle East. The energy of the region, the multicultural context of the region, the young generation and the women joining the workforce, and in the context of joining the workforce, getting new skills, is a unique opportunity to be one of the first movers in the adoption of the new technology and the new jobs. In the past, and this is what we were discussing with our client, sometimes global consulting firm in the region, we were used to import best practices from the rest of the world because we were catching up. When it comes to artificial intelligence, quantum computing, distributed ledger, so blockchain, we are starting from the same starting line. So if we have the young generation learning more, if you have distribution of those skills, of those, let's say, new technology, combined with the energy and the long-term vision of the countries we are living here, I think this can be a winning combination. And as you can see, learning, and especially online learning, has a role to play to unlock a potential for the region to be early adopter of some of the new technologies that will change, let's say, the work and the world. So I see that as a huge opportunity if we manage the access, if we manage the curation of the content, if we manage. But this is here now, and it was not true 10 years ago.
Yes,
Indeed.
Totally agree.
Thank you, Alexis and Nevine, for such thorough insights. Let's hear now a little bit from the audience. I've got some questions here. I'm going to try and group them. So first one has to do, so e-learning platforms, or most e-learning platforms tend to be adapted to PCs, but not all youth have PCs nor tablets. So how much of the available online content can be accessed through mobile phones?
All, I guess all. all on mobile phones. You can access everything on mobile phones. And you don't have to, you can just download or view. You don't have to save. It will not take memory, it will not take space on your mobile, but you can access everything through the mobile. And as we mentioned, that the good thing now that a lot of big universities like Harvard and Oxford, big universities, they opened a lot of free courses, free videos. I don't want to say names, but a lot of organizations, they have free learning materials online. So it's a chance. It's now or never. So start from the mobile.
Yes, and I guess, I mean, that of course, I mean, makes it much easier for almost any young person nowadays to access online learning. I mean, given that I think the first thing that many youth have is a mobile phone. So more questions. I mean, this regards language and specific the Arabic language. So with so many free coding platforms that allow access, how much effort is being done to create content in Arabic? How much of it is available? There's quite a few questions along the same lines.
Okay, the Egyptian Knowledge Bank, it's called Egyptian Knowledge Bank. ENK, I think, or EKB, EKB.org. The Egyptian Knowledge Bank, it's free. It's totally free for all the students and all the learners, and everyone wants to register on it. And it has tons and tons of Arabic translated and Arabic PDF books and scholars and researchers and everything. So please try to go to the Egyptian Knowledge Bank. I will say it in Arabic for our Egyptian listeners. البنك المعرفة, السايت بتاع بنك المعرفة. So please log in, make a username and password, and enjoy all the Arabic content.
I feel, you know, I think this is a relevant question, and my feeling is that we are a bit lagging in the availability of Arabic content today, and I see that in our business. There is a real intent, so I really believe that with the intent and the technology, in the coming 5 years, we will have much more content available in Arabic. You know, we were contributing to one of the first chatbot in Arabic, where chatbot were already, you know, rolled out. So I think we see a lagging effect on some due to the content availability. To be frank, this is something we discuss now. I can only see that this will disappear in the coming 5 years. And again, all through the help of technology and artificial intelligence for translation, you know, the translation let's say improvement and learning curve is impressive, and this is AI and this is deep learning. So this will help certainly. And then there's more and more important local ecosystem firm, company and government that are also investing in creating more content in Arabic. So I see that as a problem today, certainly, to spread a bit more some of the skills we would like to spread. But I see that as something that will be significantly impacted again by technology in the coming few years.
Thank you. I do have a few questions here talking about challenges. So one for Alexis. What are the challenges facing the online learners and how to overcome them? Just, if you want to talk briefly, given that you already focused, you mentioned quite a few of them, but if you want to give it a go.
Yeah. No, I think one was that was mentioned a bit is the kind of engagement and the interaction, and you know, this is something we need to rebuild, because when you bring somebody to a classroom for 1 day, 1 hour, or 1 week, you get a minimum level of attention. You sometimes can challenge that, but at least you get the focus and the presence. Where in online learning, it's easy to drop. It's easy to have your mobile open on the side. It's easy so this is certainly something that is critical and intrinsic to online learning that need to be reinvented more broadly. We are working on that. The TQ program I was mentioning is exactly on that. So it's changing the way you distribute content, the way you create the learning curve, We talk a lot about the gamification of learning. This is clearly an important component to address the young generation and to address the interaction of online learning and the level of engagement. I think there's a lot of ingredients that are already there. So nothing needs to be invented, but we need to apply more and to challenge more, let's say, the initial intent, which is let's put online the book. No, it's not enough.
Thank you. So moving on a bit towards the future. This again, question for Alexis, and there are a couple, so I'll try and group them. Do you expect this move towards online learning to continue beyond the pandemic? And then if the future of online learning compared to in-person learning in the MENA countries, will that continue? Will that decline once in-person trainings and education is resumed?
So yes, there's no, there's no return back to normal. There is a new normal, a new reality, and this is true for the workforce, the workplace, for our client, and this is true also for e-learning and online learning. So I don't see a comeback. Of course, I see going forward a mix between online and physical. So physical learning is not dead, still have an important part, and we need to reinvent that. But I see that similarly to what we are discussing currently in workplace. We are working from home. So we have 500 employees, 500,000 employees, all working from home. Does that mean that we are basically selling our offices? No. But going to the office 1 day a week, 2 days a week, but to have more interactive session, more intense experience, more collective experience is still important. We live in a physical world also, but it's also better to work from home and to potentially learn online from a productivity perspective. So, and when you experience the cost, the accessibility, the scalability, the personalization of online learning, do you really want for some basic stuff to come back to classroom learning? I would say no. And this is true again for the workplace, for the workforce, for what you are doing at work, mix of productivity, personalization, access. And this is true for the learning. So it will be a blend, but we will never come back. And my bet is 80-20, not 50-50, and 80 online learning.
Thank you. I've got now a question for both of you. Do you see a risk of losing the human element, the human touch, amidst all this technology focus? So Nevine, do you want to go first, and then Alexis can?
Okay, no, why lose the human element? We are here, we are human together now. We're interacting, we're talking. No, it's not losing the human element at all. It is vice versa, I mean. And as Alexia was saying, that it will be a continuous blend. You might go to the office 1 day, 2 days to have the real face-to-face meetings and important signatures or things to do in the office, but still, I agree totally. There is no comeback. There is no, a lot of businesses and companies already, now the lockdown is over in Egypt a little bit. A lot of companies, they decided that they will work only 2 days per week, as Alexis was saying. So no, there is the human interaction, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I will even, to build on that, I will even challenge that you go to the office to sign. You know, I did not sign. I did not use this pen to sign any document, and I'm still signing a fair amount of document every day for the last 6 months.
Yes.
So that's part of it.
Alexis, don't deny that working from home has no limit for the times. When you're in the office at 5 o'clock, you close and go. At home, you're working till 1 o'clock at night. So
that's part of the equation, and that's part of the human equation. So, because I was mentioning at the very beginning of our conversation, you know, the paradox.
Yes.
Yes, there's more digital skills to learn, to acquire. But at the same time, this is a time of creativity. This is a time of empathy. You know, the last 6 months, nobody can challenge that it was all about empathy and the ability to create a caring environment for people in a non-physical environment. So it's the time for problem solving, for innovation, to build the new resiliency. So I will never oppose human and technology. You know, I start to lose my human touch when I get this. This is a tool. I'm not less or more human with my glasses, where people believe that I'm less or more human with my phone. So this is a paradigm that I'm clearly challenging. We need both. There is a huge multiplier effect in using both and combining both. We are, you know, social animals, so we need physical interaction. We need that. But do we need that to be productive 10 hours a day? Maybe not. Yeah. Depending on the tasks that you need to work on. I'm personally, and I'm more productive in a work from home context, where I can have 12 meetings in one day with a clear focus agenda than the same type of day while I was traveling between Dubai and Abu Dhabi. It was maximum 4 meetings for the same day. Exactly. So you can have productivity. You need to balance with, of course, social interaction, but I will never oppose the human touch and the technology, because we don't have to choose. We will remain human, and we will leverage technology of this century like we used to leverage technology of the previous century.
Thank you. Well said. Well, I'm afraid we don't really have much more time for many questions. So I'll just, as we close, I'd like to give the floor briefly to each one of the speakers. So to Alexis and Nevine. Maybe Alexis spoke last, so Nevine, you can go first, and Alexis can have the last word. And could you tell us how, in one sentence, or sum up very briefly, how online learning can help build resilience for our youth today, so that they can shape the world of tomorrow?
I always say tough times, they do not last, but tough people do. And with this new norm, we are happy that we are there, and all the world started changing. And you know, the most important thing is the resistance to change. We were forced, but I think the world is happy to be there with the online learning and with the resilience and flexibility of time to learn, of place to learn, and of different professors to get knowledge from, and different organizations to get knowledge from. So tough people will last.
Fantastic.
And you know, if I may, resilience and resiliency is not something you build like a business continuity plan. You build it and then you just apply. Resiliency is, and building resilience for a business, for an individual, is a learning curve. So it's all about innovation, creativity, problem solving, all human-centric skills. And my feeling is that the ability to distribute more skills, more content through online learning is basically creating a more resilient economy, but also a more resilient population and community. And this is much more inclusive than building resiliency for a business or for an economy. So this is why, and I hope that I was able to pass some of this excitement regarding what we can do now that we were not able to do 10 years ago.
You were, both of you were. Thank you. So we've got 5 minutes left. just as a close, if I was to take home, I think one conclusion from our wonderful debate today is the extraordinary potential and reach of online learning. Things that we cannot even dream of a few years ago, 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, now are possible, and many more things would come. Online learning opens endless opportunities, endless possibilities for students, for companies, the economy, and the society alike. Of course, there are a few hurdles to overcome. And from what I've heard here today, everybody has a part to play. So it's up to all of us, every single stakeholders, to focus on the strengths and on the positiveness and on the opportunities, and act together to make sure that we bring education an opportunity not only to every student, but to every home and every family. So thank you once again, everybody, for joining us. Just before we stop, please, for the recording, for those of you who would like to see us again, share it with friends, family, colleagues who couldn't make it today. Please don't forget to have a look at our website, so efe.org, or our several social media channels. So for now, well, we'll finish 3 minutes early, if I may. So have a great morning, a great afternoon, or great evening, and until the next one, we'll be waiting for you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be with you, Nevine and Anna. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. My pleasure as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Anne. Bye-bye.
Bye.